There comes a time in your life when you realize peace is more valuable than proving a point. Silence, my friend, is not weakness. It's wisdom wrapped in strength. The world will push you to react. People will misunderstand you. They will twist your words, question your character, challenge your peace, and sometimes even drag your name through the dirt. But let me ask you this. What are you really winning by arguing with a fool? You're trying to water a dead tree, hoping it'll bloom. Arguments don't change hearts, they harden them. You think if you yell louder, they'll finally understand, but all you're doing is losing sleep, losing peace, and sometimes losing yourself. Your energy is sacred. Your time is expensive. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not in defeat, but in discipline. Not because you don't have a comeback, but because your soul is at peace with the truth. Don't trade your inner calm for outer validation. Remember, the loudest person in the room isn't the strongest, the calmest one is. You ever walk away from an argument feeling drained, not victorious, your heart pounding, your head spinning, your spirit low? That's because arguing doesn't just take words, it takes you. It pulls from your peace, pulls from your purpose, pulls from the core of who you are. And the worst part? The other person doesn't even feel it. They walk away the same, unchanged, unbothered, maybe even entertained. Whoa, partnership, whoa! But you're left replaying everything you said, everything you should have said, wondering if you made your point or just lost your way. That's the trap. Arguing gives people access to your spirit. It opens the door to your peace. And most of the time, the people you're arguing with don't care enough to respect that space. They came to fight, not to heal. They came to defend their ego, not to understand your truth. And every time you engage, every time you try to correct someone who isn't even listening, you're giving them a piece of your calm. And let me tell you, calm is rare. It's sacred. You can't afford to give it away to every fool with a loud voice and a shallow mind. You think you're standing up for yourself when you argue, but sometimes you're just standing in the mud trying to convince the pigs you're clean. And they don't care. They like it dirty. They like the chaos. See, when you argue with someone who's not grounded, who's not whole, they don't lose anything in the process. They feed off it. But you lose sleep. You lose your breath. You lose that stillness in your heart that you've been trying so hard to build. You start carrying their energy, walking around with a spirit that ain't even yours. That frustration, it came from them. That heaviness, that's not your load. But you picked it up the moment you started defending what didn't need defending. Your truth doesn't need to be shouted to be real. It doesn't need to be proven to be powerful. Peace is your position. And when you argue, you leave that position wide open. You step off your throne and wrestle in the dirt with someone who ain't even worthy of your time. Sometimes people provoke you not because they're strong, but because they're weak. They're loud because silence terrifies them. They argue not to prove a point, but to avoid facing their own reflection. And here you are, trying to reason with them, trying to explain your heart to someone who's not even trying to hear you. It's like pouring water into a cracked glass. It don't matter how pure the water is, it still won't hold. I said, like if you can read them, you know. And every time you do it, you lose something. You lose that part of you that was calm before the conversation. You lose your center. You lose your smile. And they don't even flinch. Because some people want the reaction more than the relationship. They feed off chaos. They feel powerful when they pull you out of character. And if you're not careful, you'll keep walking into battles that were never yours to fight. The cost, too high. Your peace, too valuable. Arguing is like setting yourself on fire just to prove the flames are real. You scream to be heard by someone who's already made up their mind. And they don't hear your heart, they hear your tone. They don't listen for your truth. They listen for a chance to pounce, to twist your words, to say, see, I knew you were like this. And the moment you get pulled in, you give them the power they never earned. You let them write on your spirit with hands that were never clean. But here's the hard truth. Most people who argue don't want clarity, they want control. They don't want connection, they want a momentary win. And if they can pull you into the fire, then they've already succeeded, because now you're reacting instead of rising. Now you're defending instead of discerning. Now you're loud when you were born to be still. You've traded your grace for grit. And when you walk away, it's not peace you feel, it's regret. You ever been in a room full of noise and felt like screaming wouldn't make a difference? That's what arguing with the wrong people feels like. It's not a conversation, it's a competition. A race to who can hurt the most. And what are you gaining? Pride? A moment of feeling right? That moment passes, but the damage you do to yourself, carrying anger that wasn't yours, replaying moments that were never worth it, that damage lingers. Peace isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the decision to not let chaos choose your response. It's choosing silence when you know you could destroy them with words. That's strength. That's maturity. And that's something most people will never understand. They think walking away is weakness. Let them. Because only those who have been at war know the value of peace. Only those who have lost themselves in battles know what it means to not engage. You don't need to prove you're right to someone committed to misunderstanding you. And let's be honest, most arguments are based on emotion, not truth. And emotions lie, emotions shift. What felt right in the heat of the moment feels foolish in the stillness of night. You say things you don't mean, you hear things that weren't said, and then you carry those wounds into places that were meant to be safe, into your home, into your work, into your sleep. Peace doesn't just disappear. It gets traded. Every time you argue, you're making an exchange. You're saying, here's my calm, take it in exchange for this chaos. And what do you get back? Nothing. Just a mind racing with thoughts that won't let you rest. A spirit heavy with words you can't take back. And a heart trying to heal from a fight that never should have happened. You're not weak for staying silent. You're wise for walking away. Because in the end, peace is not just a mood, it's a decision. And arguing always makes the wrong one. There's a kind of silence that speaks louder than any argument, a stillness that says, I know who I am. I don't need to shout it. When you choose not to argue, you're not backing down. You're rising up. You're saying, my peace is more important than your approval. That kind of power, it shakes people. It unsettles them because they expect chaos. They expect a fight. And when you give them silence, it forces them to sit with themselves. That's uncomfortable for a lot of people, but not for you. You've done the work. You've walked through storms. You've battled your own demons. You've earned your peace. And you don't let just anybody walk in and take it. Arguing is for the insecure, for the ego-driven, for the ones who don't know how to be still. But you've grown past that. You've learned the beauty of letting things be, of releasing what doesn't serve you. And that's the kind of strength no argument can shake. People will try to trigger you just to feel like they matter. They'll poke and prod until you snap, because your reaction validates their existence. Don't give them that. Don't let someone with no control over their own life control your emotions. That's too much power to hand over. When you argue, you're saying your chaos is worth my calm, and it never is. You weren't born to be a responder to noise. You were born to rise above it, to be the calm in the storm, to be the light in the room full of darkness. Arguing dims that light. It wraps your soul in shadows and calls it strength. But real strength doesn't raise its voice. It raises its standards. It says, not everything deserves my presence. Not every battle deserves my sword. So walk away, not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. Because peace isn't where the fight is. It's where the healing lives. Arguments will have you acting out of character, speaking out of pain, reacting out of fear. And the damage it does, it isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's that restless sleep, that tightness in your chest, that emotional hangover the next day. That's the cost. That's the price of stepping into chaos with someone who has nothing to lose. And you've come too far. You've worked too hard. You've prayed too long to let someone's opinion take you off course. Arguing may feel like control in the moment, but it's actually surrender. You're surrendering your peace, your presence, your power. And for what? A win that doesn't even exist. Because even when you win an argument, you lose something bigger. You lose clarity. You lose peace. And peace, that's priceless. That's the real win. So hold your silence like a crown. Let it shine, let it speak, and let the world know your peace is not up for debate. You ever try to speak your truth to someone who ain't ready to hear it? Someone who looks at you, nods their head, but you can tell their ears are shut, their heart is locked, and their mind is somewhere else? That's the pain of trying to pour wisdom into a soul that's not thirsty. You're speaking life, and they're listening with deaf ears. And it hurts. Not because you need to be right, but because you care. You want to lift them. You want to help them see. You want to pull them out of the storm, but they don't want out. They've grown comfortable in confusion. They've made a home in dysfunction. And here you are, burning yourself out, trying to teach someone who's not even in the classroom. You're writing the lesson on the board, but they've already skipped the chapter. And still you keep showing up, heart open, voice tired, spirit heavy, because you believe people can change. But listen, no matter how powerful your words are, if someone's ears are closed, you're just shouting into the wind. And the wind don't hold on to wisdom. It blows it away. Trying to teach closed ears is like watering concrete. Nothing grows. No matter how rich the soil in your heart, how deep the truth in your words, it won't take root where there's no openness. Some people don't want healing. They want to stay hurt because hurt is familiar. Pain is predictable. Growth? That requires surrender. That demands humility. And pride has shut their ears long before you ever spoke. So you keep repeating yourself, thinking maybe if you say it softer, louder, clearer, they'll get it. But they won't, because they've already decided not to. And every time you speak and they ignore, it chips away at your energy. It makes you question your value. You start wondering, is it me? Am I saying it wrong? No, it's not you. It's the fact that you can't force someone to receive what they refuse to recognize. And that's a hard pill to swallow when your heart is full of love and your spirit is full of fire. But some ears, they've been closed for years. And you can't teach someone who's already made up their mind. You've got people out here carrying blindfolds like badges. They don't want to see, because seeing would mean changing. Listening would mean facing what they've been avoiding. And some folks would rather stay blind than face the light. They'll argue with truth like it's an enemy, resist wisdom like it's poison, and reject love like it's a threat. And you keep knocking on the door of their understanding, praying they'll open up. See? But baby, if the door's been bolted from the inside, no amount of knocking will get you in. You've got to know when to speak and when to be silent, when to plant and when to walk away from rocky soil. There's a difference between persistence and punishment, and some of y'all are punishing yourselves trying to force feed wisdom to people who ain't even hungry. You deserve better than that. You deserve a listening ear, a willing heart, an open soul. And if they can't offer that, then your voice needs to find a better home, one that honors what you bring to the table. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they're in your life. You don't have to keep explaining, keep proving, keep teaching someone who's committed to being deaf to truth. Let me say it again. You don't have to carry that burden, that weight, that responsibility to fix someone who don't want to be fixed. Some people don't want growth. They want validation. They want applause for their excuses, not accountability for their action. And when you don't give it to them, they shut down, they accuse, they blame. But that's not your load to bear. Your job is to offer light, not to force it into places that have chosen darkness. You can love someone and still let them be. You can care deeply and still keep your distance. And sometimes the greatest act of love is silence, is space, is stepping back so they can hear the echo of their own choices. And maybe, just maybe, that silence will be louder than all your words ever were. There's a difference between guidance and control. And if you're not careful, your desire to help will turn into a battle to change someone who doesn't want to change. That's not love. That's desperation. And it's draining you. You're trying to save someone who doesn't even see the water rising. And if they do, they don't believe it'll drown them. They think they're fine. They think they're floating. But you see the truth. They're sinking. And your instinct is to reach out, to pull, to plead. But if they're not reaching back, you'll go under with them. You'll lose your air. You'll lose your breath. You'll lose you. And they'll still blame you for it. Let me tell you something real. Wisdom is a gift, but not everyone is ready to unwrap it. And until they are, your best efforts will feel like noise in a crowded room. You can't teach closed ears no matter how loud your love is. Sometimes you have to let people crash so they learn to drive. You have to let them fall so they understand the value of balance. And that's hard, especially when you see the crash coming. When you see the signs, the red flags, the warning lights, you want to intervene. You want to block the blow. But life has a way of teaching lessons your words never could. Experience speaks louder than advice, and sometimes the silence after the fall is the only thing loud enough to open someone's ears. So stop blaming yourself. Stop feeling guilty because they didn't listen. You did your part. You showed up. You spoke from the heart. You offered truth with love, and they still chose the storm. That ain't on you. That's on them. And one day they'll look back and remember your words. They'll wish they listened, but by then you'll be gone, healed, whole, and no longer holding space for deaf ears. People don't just close their ears, they close their hearts too. And a closed heart can't receive love, can't receive correction, can't receive wisdom. It's a wall that nothing gets through. And if you keep speaking to that wall, all you'll hear is your own echo. That echo becomes doubt. That doubt becomes frustration. That frustration becomes pain. And now you're hurt because you gave everything and got nothing back. That's not what love is supposed to feel like. That's not what teaching is supposed to do. Teaching is meant to elevate, to inspire, to awaken. But if the listener is asleep by choice, your fire will just burn you out. Don't dim your light trying to shine in someone else's darkness. Don't bend your truth to fit their comfort. Speak once, speak twice, and if they still don't hear, walk in silence. Let your growth be the loudest thing they hear. You ever notice how the loudest people are often the least teachable? That's not a coincidence. Noise is a distraction. It's a shield. It keeps them from facing what's real. And when you speak truth into that noise, they either mock it, minimize it, or ignore it. But here's what you got to know. Truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to chase. It just stands. And when the noise fades, when life humbles them, when the mirror of consequences shows up, they'll remember your words. Not because you screamed them, but because they were solid, they were rooted, they were true. You don't have to be loud to be heard, you just have to be clear. And when someone's ready, they'll come looking for that clarity. But until then, don't waste your breath. Breathe instead. Breathe for you. Speak where it counts. Teach where there's room. And never beg someone to value the voice that's trying to save them. Sometimes, the most painful lesson in life is realizing that love isn't enough to change someone. That wisdom can't be injected, it has to be invited. That no matter how much light you bring, some people will still close the curtains. And you'll have to watch them stumble in the dark. You tried to help them escape. But you can't force healing. You can't drag someone into the truth. You can only live it, walk in it, embody it, and let that be the lesson. Let your life be the message they refused to hear. And maybe, just maybe, when the noise in their head finally quiets, they'll remember the peace in your voice, the love in your silence, the power in your decision to stop arguing, stop pushing, stop bleeding for someone who wouldn't even hold a bandage. You can't teach closed ears, but you can protect your peace. You wake up every morning with a limited supply of something priceless, your energy. It's invisible, but you feel it. It determines your attitude, your patience, your love, your presence. And most of us, we spend it like it's unlimited. We hand it out to people who drain us. Arguments that lead nowhere, worries that haven't even happened. And before noon hits, we're bankrupt. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You don't need a paycheck to be rich or poor. Some folks are millionaires in money, but broke in spirit. Some walk around with a full bank account, but empty hearts. Because energy, real, soulful, God-given energy, is the most expensive currency you have. And if you keep giving it to chaos, to people who don't appreciate it, to situations that don't grow you, you're going to find yourself exhausted and resentful, wondering why peace feels so far away. It's not far. You've just spent your peace trying to buy people's love, trying to fix what's not yours to fix, trying to prove what shouldn't need proving. You've got to stop making withdrawals from your soul just to make deposits in people who don't give back. That's not generosity. That's self-destruction in disguise. You wouldn't hand your credit card to a stranger and say, go ahead, spend whatever you want. So why do you let people swipe your energy like it costs nothing? You let their opinions weigh you down. You let their attitudes infect your joy. You give your time to arguments, to gossip, to battles you were never meant to fight. And by the time you sit with yourself at night, you're empty. You're drained. You're done. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to entertain every confrontation. You don't have to match their energy, especially when it's low. You can choose to protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Your sanity does. Your growth does. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to something that could build you. And life's too short to be bankrupt in spirit. You've got to learn how to say, I don't have the energy for this. And that's okay. Not out of weakness, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, out of self-respect. That's strength. Knowing where your energy goes and guarding it like treasure. People will take everything from you if you let them. Your time, your heart, your sanity, and your energy is often the first to go. Not because they're evil, not because they hate you, but because you haven't drawn the line. And when you don't set boundaries, people don't see limits. They see access, constant access. And that's the most dangerous thing you can give someone when you're still trying to build your own peace. They'll come to you with problems, with chaos, with drama, because you've made yourself available. But at what cost? You were never designed to be a dumping ground for other people's dysfunction. You were designed to shine, to rise, to pour from a full cup, not a cracked one. And every time you ignore the warning signs, fatigue, frustration, bitterness, you're spending energy you can't afford to lose. That energy was supposed to go into your dreams, your healing, your vision, but you gave it away to noise, to nonsense. And now you're paying the price in silence. But today you get to choose differently. You get to say, I'm not available for that anymore. Because peace is expensive, and it's time to start investing in what brings it. You have to be so careful who you let near your energy, because not everyone wants to pour into you. Some people just want to feed off you. They see your light and want to stand in it, not build their own. They see your calm and try to test it. They see your strength and try to drain it. But you can't afford to carry people who refuse to walk. You can't keep paying emotional rent in places where you no longer live. It's okay to outgrow people. It's okay to say this season requires a different version of me. That version doesn't chase chaos. That version doesn't argue with ignorance. That version doesn't explain itself to people who've already made up their mind. You don't owe anyone access to your energy just because they had it in the past. Growth means leaving behind what no longer aligns. And sometimes that means walking away from people who refuse to evolve. That's not betrayal. That's survival. That's wisdom. And if you're serious about your peace, your purpose, your next level, you've got to spend your energy where it builds, not where it breaks. There are people in your life right now who are expensive to your spirit. Every conversation feels heavy. Every interaction leaves you tired. That's not love, that's spiritual debt. And you keep paying it, hoping one day it'll get better. But the truth is, love doesn't feel like anxiety. It doesn't feel like obligation. It feels like peace. And peace should never be the price you pay for connection. You're allowed to say this costs too much. You're allowed to walk away from situations that no longer serve your energy. And it's not selfish, it's sacred. You're not rejecting them, you're choosing you. And when you start choosing yourself, when you start protecting your energy like it's gold, everything changes. Your mind clears. Your joy returns. Your purpose sharpens, because now your energy is flowing where it's supposed to. Not scattered, not stolen, not wasted. You're not here to survive people's dysfunction. You're here to thrive in your truth. And thriving takes energy. So stop spending it on what doesn't matter. You were created for more than survival. Not everything requires your response. Not every comment deserves your reaction. You don't have to prove yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It's wasted energy. You don't have to convince someone of your worth. You show it by how you treat yourself. Every time you rise above the nonsense, every time you walk away from drama, every time you say no to what doesn't align, you're depositing into your soul. And that's the kind of wealth no one can steal. When you spend your energy wisely, you attract different things. You attract peace. You attract clarity. You attract people who see your value without you having to shout it. You stop chasing and start building. You stop begging and start becoming. You stop surviving and start thriving. But it all begins with a simple decision. My energy is mine, and I will no longer spend it recklessly. That's your turning point. That's your power. That's when life shifts. Some of you are tired, not because you're weak, but because you've been strong in the wrong places. You've been giving strength to people who keep throwing it away. You've been showing up for people who don't even notice. That wears on you. That makes your soul ache, and it makes you wonder if something's wrong with you. There isn't. You just haven't been guarding your currency. And it's time to shift. Time to look at your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. You don't have to keep being everything for everyone. You don't have to sacrifice your joy for someone else's comfort. You are not a rescue mission. You are not a fixer. You are a soul with a purpose, and that purpose needs energy. So ask yourself, who's draining me? What's costing me peace? What have I been investing in that gives me nothing in return? And then decide, this is the last day I spend energy on what doesn't grow me. Every moment you give to negativity is a moment taken from your healing. Every thought you spend on bitterness is energy robbed from your breakthrough. And I know it's hard. I know some wounds are deep. I know some people cut you so bad you still bleed when their name is mentioned. But they're not worth your energy. Not anymore. You've already lost enough. Don't lose your future trying to make sense of a painful past. Don't lose your light trying to expose someone else's darkness. Let it go. Not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Your energy belongs to your growth, your dreams, your joy. It belongs to the parts of you that still believe, that still hope, that still fight. Don't spend your fire keeping other people warm while you freeze in silence. Don't burn out trying to light up places that refuse to glow. Save your energy. Protect your fire. Spend it wisely. Your future needs it more than your past ever will. You can rebuild your energy starting today. You don't have to wait for a sign. You don't need permission. You are the sign. You are the decision. You are the moment. And when you choose to spend your energy with intention, with clarity, with purpose, everything changes. You'll start seeing what you were too tired to see. You'll start attracting peace instead of chasing it. You'll find strength not by doing more, but by doing what matters. And when people come around trying to drain you again, you'll smile, not out of hate, not out of bitterness, but out of knowing that you've graduated from that level, knowing that your peace is too expensive for petty. Your purpose is too precious for distractions, and your energy, it's sacred now. And the world better treat it that way, because you do. There comes a time in life when you realize that not everything needs to be said. Not every insult needs a response. Not every challenge deserves your voice. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Silence means you've mastered yourself. It means you're not going to let someone else pull you into their storm when you've worked so hard to build your peace. In a world that screams, argues, blames, and constantly demands attention, silence is strength. It takes real power to hold your tongue when your ego is begging to speak. It takes control to walk away when every part of you wants to engage. But the strongest ones, they don't need to prove anything. They don't explain themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. They don't beg to be heard. They know who they are. And that alone is louder than any words they could ever say. Because when your spirit is calm, your silence becomes louder than noise. And that silence, that's where your power lives. That's where your wisdom grows. That's where your enemies get confused because they can't fight what won't respond. You see, the world has taught us that if you don't speak up, you're weak. That if you stay quiet, you've lost. But what they don't understand is that silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's refusing to waste your breath on those who are not listening. It's not about losing the argument, it's about winning your peace. When you answer every fool, you start sounding like one. When you fight every battle, you lose your strength. Silence is how you conserve your power. It's how you stay in control of your emotions, your mind, your energy. It's how you keep your dignity in a world that's constantly trying to snatch it. Some people will push every button you have just to get a reaction. And when you don't give it to them, when you keep your calm, when you say nothing, you win. Not because you got the last word, but because you didn't let them shake your spirit. That's strength. That's control. That's grace in motion. And grace, my friend, is a language only the strong understand. There are moments when silence screams louder than words, when you walk away instead of clapping back, when you turn your back on chaos instead of stepping into it. That's not cowardice, that's courage. It takes courage to let people think what they want to think, to not correct every lie, to not defend yourself against every false accusation. Because the truth is, people are going to believe what they want to believe anyway. Some folks aren't looking for clarity, they're looking for chaos. And the best way to beat chaos is not to join it. Let them talk, let them throw stones. Let them misunderstand. That's not your burden to carry. You don't owe anyone your peace to prove a point. You don't owe your energy to every argument. When you master the art of silence, you stop dancing to other people's noise. You stop living on the defense. You start protecting your light. And the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who don't even care to understand you, that's the moment you step into your power. Sometimes silence is the answer to disrespect, because not everything deserves a reaction. The moment you start explaining your worth to someone who already sees you as less, you've already lost your value in their eyes. Don't give people the satisfaction of watching you unravel. Don't hand your emotions to someone who came to provoke. You've got too much purpose to waste time on petty. Every time you rise above it, every time you choose silence over shouting, you're telling the world, I know who I am and I don't need to argue to prove it. That's strength, that's maturity, that's growth. And people who haven't grown will never understand your silence. They'll call it pride, they'll call it arrogance, but you'll know it's peace. And that peace is expensive. Too expensive to trade for momentary satisfaction. Let your calm be louder than their chaos. Let your stillness be your strength. Because when you're rooted in truth, you don't flinch when lies are thrown. You stay still, you stay silent. And in that silence, you rise. You weren't created to respond to every critic. You weren't built to attend every battle you're invited to. Some battles are sent just to drain you. Some people want to pull you out of character so they can point and say, see, I told you so. Don't give them that power. Stay silent, not because you can't fight, but because it's not worth your fire. Your silence is not the absence of power, it's the proof of it. And people feel that. They feel when they can't control you. They feel when their words can't penetrate your peace. And that's when you become unshakable. That's when your silence speaks volumes. It says, I'm not moved by your noise. I'm grounded in something deeper. Because peace is louder than pride. Peace doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't argue, it simply exists. And in doing so, it silences everything that comes against it. There will be people who try to bait you. People who test you, provoke you, insult you, hoping to get a rise out of you because they don't understand peace. They don't recognize strength that doesn't shout. So when you don't give them what they're used to, when you answer their fire with silence, they don't know what to do. And that silence, that unsettles them more than any comeback ever could. You see, some people thrive on conflict. They feed off your reaction. But when you give them silence, you cut off their fuel. You take your power back. You say, I don't live in that space anymore. And that decision, that choice to remain silent, that's where transformation begins. That's when healing starts. Because silence isn't just an escape from noise. It's a return to self. It's the place where you remember who you are and whose you are. That's when you stop reacting and start responding. With wisdom, with stillness, with purpose. When you finally learn the power of silence, you begin to speak less and listen more, not just to others, but to yourself, to God, to the quiet voice within that's been drowned out by drama for too long. And in that stillness, you realize something powerful. You don't need to be loud to be heard. Your presence is loud enough. Your peace is loud enough. Your growth is loud enough. And you start to carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms with quiet confidence. You stop oversharing. You stop over-explaining because you know real power doesn't need to prove. Real strength doesn't need applause. It just is. That's what silence teaches you. It teaches you that you can be both soft and unshakable, that you can be gentle and powerful, that you don't have to shout to make an impact. You just have to show up as the healed version of yourself. And that version speaks through energy, not ego. There's a kind of peace that only comes when you stop trying to convince people, when you let go of needing to be understood, accepted, or even liked. That's the space where silence becomes your refuge. It becomes your shield. You stop chasing explanations and start embracing elevation. Because you realize not everyone is meant to hear your side. Not everyone is meant to walk your path. And the more you silence the noise around you, the clearer your vision becomes. You start moving with purpose. You start making choices that align with who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Silence gives you access to that version of yourself that's been buried beneath expectations and opinions. It reminds you that you are not defined by your responses. You are defined by your resilience. And sometimes the loudest strength is choosing not to react. That's when your silence becomes not just a tool, but a weapon. Silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've decided to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. It means you've chosen to protect your heart, your energy, your purpose. And that kind of silence, that's sacred. That's spiritual. Because not everything needs to be spoken to be powerful. Some of the strongest messages are delivered in silence. When you walk away from chaos, when you ignore the bait, when you rise without noise. That's the kind of silence that shakes foundations. That's the kind of silence that speaks to heaven. And that's the kind of silence that builds legacy. So if you've been misunderstood, disrespected, or underestimated, don't shout. Don't fight. Don't break your character just to be heard. Stay silent. Stay still. Stay strong. And let your peace speak for you. There's a voice inside every one of us. A voice that doesn't scream, but it whispers loud enough to shape your life. That voice, that's your ego. And the truth is, most of the battles we fight in this world ain't even with other people. They're with ourselves. The real enemy is not out there, it's within. It's the ego that tells you to prove your worth. It's the ego that gets offended when someone doesn't acknowledge your effort. It's the ego that makes you argue just to be right, not to find peace. And if you don't learn to master it, it'll master you. It'll trick you into thinking you have to respond to everything, defend yourself constantly, compete with people who aren't even in your lane. That ego will rob you of your growth. It'll make you react instead of reflect. It'll keep you stuck in cycles where you feel the need to win every conversation, dominate every situation, and never show weakness. But here's the truth. The strongest version of you isn't the loudest. It's the one who's conquered the voice that says you have to be more than who you are. The real battle, it starts in your mind. You ever notice how exhausting it is trying to prove something to people? Trying to constantly be seen, be validated, be heard? That's not your soul working. That's your ego dragging you. And the more you feed that ego, the hungrier it gets. It'll never be satisfied. It wants the last word. It wants the recognition. It wants to look good, even if it means you feel empty on the inside. Ego will have you chasing applause instead of alignment. It'll make you say things you didn't mean just to win an argument that didn't matter. It'll keep you from apologizing when you know you're wrong because it's too proud to bend. But let me tell you something. True strength isn't in being right all the time. It's in being real. It's in admitting when your ego has been driving your choices. When you realize you've been fighting people outside of you while losing the battle within. That's where freedom begins. When you stop letting your ego speak on your behalf, that's when your peace begins to return. That's when you start healing. Because the loudest wars aren't fought in public. They're fought in silence, behind closed doors, inside your own heart. The ego is clever. It'll wear masks. Sometimes it looks like ambition. Sometimes it looks like confidence, but underneath it's fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being overlooked. And that fear will make you desperate for validation, addicted to approval, hungry for credit. You'll chase claps instead of purpose. You'll build a life that looks successful, but feels hollow. And nobody will even know you're struggling because ego keeps you smiling in public while you're breaking in private. It won't let you ask for help. It won't let you cry. It won't let you admit, I'm not okay. Because ego doesn't want you to heal. It wants you to hide. But you can't fix what you won't face. And the longer you let your ego lead, the longer you'll keep living a life that doesn't match your soul. The real battle is sitting still long enough to ask yourself, is this really me? Or is this just who I thought I needed to be? And when the answer hurts, don't run. Stay there. Lean into it. Because the truth will shatter your ego. The ego tells you to never forgive. to never forget, to hold on to the pain like it's proof that you were wronged. But forgiveness isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's saying, I release this for me, not for them. The ego doesn't want you to move forward. It wants to replay the offense over and over again. It wants revenge. It wants closure that may never come. But real peace comes when you realize you don't need closure from someone who broke you. You need closure with the part of yourself that let ego lead your healing. Let me say this. Your ego will always make you the victim. It'll make you believe you had no part in the pain. But growth comes when you say, what did this teach me? Not how could they, but how can I grow? That shift in perspective, that's you stepping out of ego and into healing. Because healing isn't loud, it's quiet. It's not a moment. It's a choice you make every day to rise above the part of you that wants to stay hurt just so it doesn't have to feel small. That's the real battle. And you win it one silent victory at a time. The ego will sabotage your relationships. It'll make you compete with your partner instead of connect. It'll make you defensive instead of open. You'll find yourself building walls instead of bridges, all because you're scared of looking vulnerable. You hold back your love because ego says, don't let them see you care too much. But love doesn't live in ego. It dies there. And the moment you let your pride speak for you, you lose the chance to build something real. The strongest thing you can do is say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I want to do better. But ego hates humility. It wants to win, even if it means losing what matters. Relationships built on ego are always in competition, always on edge, always one misstep away from collapse. But when you let go of ego, you make space for intimacy, for connection, for truth. You stop trying to be right and you start trying to be real. And being real, that's rare, that's powerful, that's how you grow, something that lasts. But you can't do that if your ego is louder than your heart. The ego loves comparison. It thrives off it. It'll make you scroll through other people's lives and wonder why you're not further, richer, more admired. But here's the truth. They're not better, they're just different. And your ego doesn't care about truth, it cares about image. It'll tell you you're behind, that you're not doing enough, that you need to hustle more, show more, prove more. And the moment you start measuring your worth based on someone else's highlight reel, you've already lost. The only person you need to be better than is the version of you from yesterday. That's it. But ego won't let you see your progress. It's too busy comparing your start to someone else's finish. And that comparison, that kills gratitude, that kills joy, that keeps you chasing shadows instead of substance. But once you quiet the ego, you begin to see how far you've actually come. You stop chasing approval and start cherishing your journey. You stop copying and start creating. That's where your power lives. Not in the applause of others, but in the alignment with yourself. Ego won't let you rest. It'll convince you that if you're not grinding, you're falling behind, that rest is laziness, that slowing down is weakness. But the truth is, rest is part of the strategy. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead when you're depleted. But the ego doesn't care about sustainability. It only cares about visibility. And that's why so many people burn out trying to prove they're enough. They hustle themselves into the ground thinking success will finally shut the voice up. But the ego doesn't quiet when you achieve more. It just raises the bar higher. And so you run and run and run until you realize the peace you were chasing was never out there. It was always inside you, waiting for you to stop performing and start listening. When you rest, not just physically, but spiritually, you give yourself permission to return to your center, to hear your soul again. And your soul doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It knows that your worth isn't in what you do, it's in who you are. That's what ego tries to make you forget. The ego hates stillness. It hates silence. Because in that silence, your soul starts to speak, and the truth of your soul will always challenge the lies of your ego. That's why it's so hard for some people to just sit still, to just be. Because when you stop moving, you have to face the noise inside you. You have to face the parts of yourself you've ignored, denied, buried. But healing begins when you get quiet, when you stop escaping. When you look yourself in the mirror and say, I've been fighting everyone except the one person I need to confront, me. And that confrontation, that's sacred. That's the real battle. It's not flashy. It's not public. It's not something you can post about. It's a war behind your eyes. But when you win it, When you silence the ego and let your soul lead, that's when everything changes. That's when life starts feeling lighter. That's when love feels purer. That's when peace stops being a destination and becomes your foundation. You don't have to fight every time someone offends you. You don't have to prove your point every time someone doubts you. You don't have to win every room, every moment, every conversation. That's your ego trying to lead your life. But when you let go of the need to be right, to be praised, to be perfect, you gain something much deeper. You gain freedom. You gain peace. You gain clarity. The ego is loud, but the soul is wise. And the more you listen to that wisdom, the less you feel the need to prove anything. You just live. You just love. You just grow. And let me tell you something powerful. When you win the battle against your ego, the world can no longer control you. You become free. Not because life is easy, but because your spirit is finally in charge. Plus, peace is not the absence of noise. It's not the silence in the room. Peace is the stillness within your soul, even when everything around you is shaking. That's why so many people never find it. They're looking for it in their environment when it was always meant to be found in their spirit. The world will hand you chaos. People will test you. Life will throw storms at your door like it's trying to drown you. But when you have peace inside, those storms can rage and you'll still stand unmoved. That kind of peace, that's not weakness. That's power, real power. Because when you don't react to everything, when you stop letting external noise dictate your internal weather, you rise above the madness. You gain something this world can't take away from you. The person who walks with peace is not soft. They are dangerous in the most divine way. Because when you can stay calm in a storm, when you don't let offense take root, when you don't allow anger to control your decisions, you've already won. You've defeated the real enemy, the chaos within. That's the kind of power no amount of money, fame, or status can buy. The loudest person in the room is often the most insecure. The one who always needs to be heard, needs to be seen, needs to be praised. They're not walking in peace. They're walking in pieces. Scattered by their need to be validated, controlled by the urge to respond, pulled in every direction but inward. But the person who's truly at peace doesn't have to announce it. You feel it when they walk in. Their energy speaks before their mouth ever does. They're rooted. They're present. They're steady. They don't need to prove anything to anyone because they've already made peace with themselves. And let me tell you something. Peace with yourself is the greatest achievement you'll ever unlock. Not the job, not the car, not the applause. Because if you can't sit alone with your own thoughts and feel whole, nothing you gain will ever fill you. Nothing. That's why peace is so rare. It requires facing your demons, letting go of grudges, releasing your need to win every fight. That kind of internal stillness, that's sacred. That's real strength. You see, the world has taught us that power looks like control, domination, shouting louder, proving your worth. But true power looks like restraint. It looks like walking away from a fight you could win just to keep your peace. It looks like not clapping back even when you know you could destroy someone with the truth. It looks like choosing not to carry bitterness because you know your peace is too expensive to trade for revenge. That kind of strength doesn't come easy. It's forged in pain. It's built in solitude. It's formed when life knocks you down, and instead of lashing out, you look within. Peace is what happens when your soul gets tired of war. When you no longer need to be right, you just want to be free. Free from the chaos of other people's opinions. Free from the emotional roller coaster of needing to always be heard. Free from the noise that tells you your value is tied to how loud you are. Peace is not passive. It's active. It's a daily decision to rise above, to remain unmoved, to choose your healing over your ego. That's the ultimate flex. Most people are fighting battles no one sees. Their mind is loud, their heart is tired, and their soul is weary. But instead of healing, they choose distractions. They argue, they blame, they lash out. Because ego would rather you be loud than be still. But peace requires you to slow down, to breathe, to sit with the discomfort. And that's hard. Because when you stop distracting yourself, you start discovering things you buried, hurts you never healed from, anger you never released, regrets you never faced. But that's where peace begins. In truth, in honesty, in facing what's really been controlling you. That's why so few people find it. They're scared of what silence will show them. But the truth is, peace is already inside of you. It's not something you chase. It's something you uncover. Beneath the pain, beneath the noise, beneath the false identities you've worn to survive. When you get there, when you finally meet yourself underneath all the chaos, you'll realize you were never broken, just buried. And peace is the shovel that brings you back to life. Peace doesn't come when life is easy. Peace comes when you decide that life's chaos doesn't get to control your inner climate. And that choice, that's power. That's the kind of power that confuses people. They won't understand why you're not bothered, why you're not reacting, why you can walk through betrayal, rejection, loss, and still carry light in your eyes. But peace isn't ignorance. It's mastery. It means you've been to hell and made it out. It means you've cried and kept going. It means you've stopped blaming and started building. It means you've grown tired of the noise and chosen the stillness of knowing who you are. And the more peace you carry, the more chaos you'll attract. But that's the test. Will you let their storms drag you down, or will you stand anchored in your truth? Will you be pulled into drama, or will you rise in silence? Peace doesn't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels boring after a life of emotional roller coasters. But it's the most powerful state you can live in. It's the calm that says, I've finally come home to myself. You want to know why some people try to disturb your peace? Because they don't have any of their own. Chaos is comfortable to them. Dysfunction is their normal. And when you no longer play the game, when you don't respond, when you don't react, they get confused, frustrated, uncomfortable, because your peace exposes their inner war. But don't let their noise become your narrative. Don't let their anger become your energy. You've worked too hard to get here. Too many nights of crying, too many seasons of silence, too many moments where you chose healing over hatred. Don't trade your peace to prove a point. Don't lose your soul trying to win a fight. Some people thrive off your reaction. So stop feeding them. Protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Walk away if you have to, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You don't need to win the argument when you've already won your inner war. That's power. That's growth. That's what peace looks like. And when you've tasted it, you'll never go back to surviving in chaos again. The problem is we've been taught that peace is passive, that it means letting people walk over you, that it means being quiet when you should speak up. But real peace sets boundaries. Real peace walks away from toxicity. Real peace speaks the truth, not to be cruel, but to be clear. Peace doesn't mean you avoid confrontation. It means you handle it with grace, with wisdom, with clarity. You no longer let your emotions drive the car. You let your values lead the way. And that shift, that's growth. That's healing. That's the kind of strength the world desperately needs, but rarely celebrates. Because we reward hustle, noise, hustle, grind. But peace is revolutionary. It's you saying, I refuse to lose myself in the pursuit of everything else. It's you choosing to guard your spirit in a world that profits off your distraction. So no, peace is not soft. Peace is fierce. It's fire wrapped in stillness. It's discipline in disguise. And when you walk in it, you become a threat to everything that tried to break you. The more peace you carry, the less you feel the need to explain yourself. You stop justifying your boundaries. You stop over-explaining your silence. You just move. You just exist. You just protect what's sacred. Because not everyone deserves access to your presence. Not everyone has earned the right to sit at your table. And that's not pride, that's peace. Peace will teach you to stop begging people to understand you. To stop watering yourself down just to keep the peace externally while destroying it internally. Peace makes you whole, not dependent. It fills you up from the inside out, so you're no longer looking for someone else to give you what you already carry. And once you have that, you become untouchable, not because life stops throwing challenges, but because your soul no longer reacts like it used to. You rise, you adjust, you breathe, and you remind yourself, I don't have to attend every war I'm invited to. That's peace. That's power. And that's where your real transformation begins. Your greatest flex will never be your status. It won't be the money, the house, or how many followers you got. Your greatest flex is the peace you walk in, that quiet confidence, that unshakable spirit, that decision to choose joy when bitterness would have been easier, that decision to forgive when hate tried to grow in your heart, that decision to smile, to love, to breathe, even when life tried to suffocate you. You see, peace isn't something life gives you, it's something you decide on every day. And when the world doesn't make sense, and when people hurt you, and when nothing goes your way, you still wake up and choose peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer available for the chaos that once ran your life. That's real power. That's kingdom energy. And when you walk like that, talk like that, love like that, everything around you begins to shift. You become the calm in other people's storms. Not because you're better, but because you're anchored. And the world can't shake what God has rooted. Peace is not a luxury. It is not something that falls into our laps when life finally slows down. It is a choice, a sacred decision we make every single day, often in the face of storms, betrayal, chaos, and noise. Real peace is the mark of real power. It's the ability to stand tall when the world shakes, to breathe deep when everything feels like it's crumbling, to carry light in your soul when darkness tries to settle around you. It's the strength to walk away from battles that are beneath you, to protect your energy like the precious treasure it is, and to refuse to let anger, bitterness, and resentment take up space inside your spirit. The journey to peace is not an easy one. It demands that you confront parts of yourself you once buried. It asks you to let go of old pain, to forgive even when there's no apology, to choose healing when hatred is easier. It's about learning to stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. It's about realizing that some people are addicted to chaos, and your calm will confuse and even enrage them. But you stay rooted anyway. You stay grounded anyway, because you know that your peace is your power, and no one gets to take that from you unless you hand it over willingly. Peace is not passive. It's not weakness. It's not surrendering to life's hardships. It's the fiercest kind of strength. It's knowing you have the power to clap back, to fight, to argue, but choosing silence, choosing wisdom, choosing love. It's about no longer being available for the dysfunction that used to run your life. It's about refusing to let temporary emotions make permanent decisions for you. It's about mastering your reactions and living from a place of intentional stillness. That is the real battle. That is the real victory. To know that you do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. To know that the greatest demonstration of power is not how loud you can be, but how unbothered you can remain. When you walk with peace, you walk with a different kind of authority, a presence that cannot be manufactured or faked, a light that shines even when the world tries to put it out. You stop chasing validation. You stop looking for outside applause, because you realize that everything you were searching for was always found in the stillness of your own soul. Peace was never out there. It was always within you, waiting for you to return home. And once you taste that kind of peace, once you anchor yourself to it, you will protect it with everything you have. You will recognize that your peace is your greatest currency, your sharpest weapon, and your truest gift to the world. Thank you for allowing these words to reach your spirit today. Keep choosing peace, even when the world gives you a reason not to. Keep standing tall, even when the storms come. You are stronger than you know, and the light inside you was meant to endure. God bless you. Stay strong. Stay rooted. Stay peaceful.